Hello, everyone. Tony Costa here. It's been a long time since I've been on YouTube, and one of the reasons for that is that recently YouTube up here in Canada decided to demonetize me. And no doubt, I think that has a lot to do with the bill that was passed by the federal government in Canada called Bill C-11, which allows the government powers and its agencies to monitor the internet and remove anything that they deem to be unacceptable and so forth. And so to be quite honest with you, I'm not surprised that this happened. I was told that this was a possibility, and so I'm not surprised that this has happened. And so I just want to let you know that I will keep this YouTube channel up and running, but I am moving to Rumble as well. And so I have set up a Rumble account. And the videos on YouTube will be synced into the Rumble account as well. So stay tuned for that. So as I said, YouTube demonetized me here in Canada, and I will be moving to Rumble, as many others have done as well, where we have a platform where we could express our views openly and freely without threats of censorship and cancel culture and so on. The other thing I wanted to mention as well in this video is I will be, I'm finished writing my new book entitled No King But Christ, The Collapse and Bankruptcy of Secular Worldviews. And I'm looking forward to that book being published. And so this will be my new book. And in that book, No King But Christ, The Collapse and Bankruptcy of Secular Worldviews, I deal with various issues such as Christ versus Caesar, the two royal rivals that we find in the New Testament, and of course in the life and ministry of the Lord Jesus Christ, including his death and resurrection. I also discuss in this book, new book, God as the rightful sovereign, the kingship of God, which is so central to the person of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ as well. And so the idea of kingship might sound a little foreign to a number of people, particularly our American friends who live in a republic and, of course, separated in 1776 with the Declaration of Independence, where the former British colonies separated from England and from the crown, from the king, King George III at the time, and declared themselves a republic. But notwithstanding the historical reality of the Declaration of Independence from the crown, the British crown, the idea of kingship is extremely important. It is the oldest form of government known in human history. All ancient cultures had monarchical rulers, that is, kings and queens who ruled over them. And of course, the kingship of God is absolutely central and important. And of course, we know from the Bible that God has appointed a king himself, who is his son, and he is to be the inheritor, the ruler of all the nations, and so forth. The other thing that I discuss in this book is the question of, closely connected to God's kingship, is God's right as legislator. God is the lawgiver. And so I also talk about God as the basis for moral absolutes, and that God is the absolute moral lawgiver. And so we're very familiar with the laws of God, the Ten Commandments, and so forth. But closely connected to that, of course, is the idea of kingship. In the ancient world, it was the king that legislated the laws from heaven, from the divine realm, and so forth. So I'll be talking about that as well. I'll also be talking about a clash of worldviews, how the world's worldviews, their views, are inherently opposed to God's kingship and his kingdom. And I will talk about why many of these worldviews that we see today in our world are incoherent, incompatible. And that is why they're collapsing, especially now in the modern Western world. We see the utter collapse of not just democracy, but our most basic rights that are enshrined in our own legislative documents that are the foundational documents of our countries, particularly those in the West. I also talk about in this book sexual identity, which is being debated today gender, whether gender is biological or whether it's a social construct. I talk about the importance of God, the King, being the one who defines us sexually, the one who made us in his image. We'll be talking about in this book, the Imago Dei, the image of God, and how that is definitional for human identity and what defines us as humans. And I'll also be talking about the idea of human worth and dignity. Why do humans have rights? Where do these rights come from? And why do we talk about human rights? And especially when you propose this atheistic view that God doesn't exist, so God doesn't exist, and where do these rights come from? What gives humans their worth and their dignity? So we'll be talking about that. And closely associated with that is, of course, the dignity of human life. And as you know, in the West, human life is basically denigrated from the womb to the tomb. We see that in the abortion debates. We see that also in issues pertaining to euthanasia. And of course, here in Canada, physician-assisted suicide, as we also have in some Western countries as well. And so we'll be talking about that in the book. I also will address the issue of the so-called social justice movement. And I'll be talking about God as the foundation of justice, and that the social justice movement that we hear of today is actually a prop for cultural Marxism and postmodernism. It's just another flower that comes from the same garden. And so I'll be talking about social justice, and then also talk about the battle for truth, the idea of truth being objective and versus the idea that truth is subjective, which is the narrative that we see in our Western countries today, that truth is simply whatever you believe it is to be, whatever you make it. And then I'll also talk about the importance of the biblical view of the earth. As you know, the whole Mother Earth, or Gaia, as she's known in Greek, the whole question of Mother Earth and saving the planet and climate change and depopulation, and there's too many humans on the planet and we're harming the planet and so forth and so on. I devote a chapter in my book to the biblical view of the promised land, the idea of the land, the covenant that God made with Abraham and with the nation of Israel, and how that land covenant was not meant to just be this little patch of land in the Middle East, but it is intended to be a prototype of all the planet. The whole earth is going to be covered by the knowledge of the Lord. As the waters cover the seas and the oceans, so the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord. In other words, the idea of the promised land is a prototype of the new earth that is to come under Christ's kingship. And so I'll be talking about the importance of that. And then I will also be talking about the true king versus the counterfeit king. And here I will discuss Christ versus Antichrist. And where did Antichrist come from? Is Antichrist mentioned in the Old Testament? What is Antichrist? Is Antichrist a person? Is it a he? Is it a she? Is it an it? Is it a philosophy? Is it a world system? What exactly does Antichrist mean? Is there a final Antichrist figure who is going to appear in the last days? Or is the word Antichrist a symbol for something else? And so I'll be devoting an entire chapter talking about Christ versus Antichrist and how that tension has developed throughout the scriptures and how it applies to our world today. And then, of course, I summarize all of these points in a conclusion. I do provide an appendix to my book. At the end, I do talk about the effects of cultural Marxism in society and in the church. And so I talk about what exactly cultural Marxism is, where did it come from, the origins of cultural Marxism, and how cultural Marxism is something that we need to become familiar with because it has infected the Western world. And unfortunately, some of our churches have also been infected by that. So if you're interested in learning more about this, please stay tuned to the YouTube channel or my new Rumble channel for any updates. There will be updates posted as to when the book will be released. And so I look forward to sharing that with you. Thank you very much, and God bless you, and see you next time. Bye for now.